MandJTV t-shirts are now on sale. Head over to MandJTV.com and grab yourself one. Greetings, Pokefans! Michael here. You might be thinking, whoa, hey, he looks the same as he did in the t-shirt video yesterday. Well, that's because I am filming them at the same time. Efficiency, kids. Efficiency. Today I'm back to answer another Pokemon question. The first one in a very long time because so freaking many have been answered already. But anyways, you all know about Pokemon breeding. It's been a prevalent part of the Pokemon world since Generation 2. For most Pokemon, the process is simple. If a male and female Pokemon in the same egg group get together, they'll produce an egg that is the same species as the mother, but with traits from both parents. Other than the fact that the Pokemon can be different species, this is fairly similar to how most reproduction works in the real world.
That's where babies come from, kids. Mommy and daddy.
However, there are a lot of Pokemon that this doesn't apply to. Many Pokemon are genderless, meaning that their anatomy is in such a way that they don't have a biological sex. Many genderless Pokemon are genderless because they're legendary. However, there are some regular Pokemon that simply don't have a gender. Now this is confusing because for most of these Pokemon, including the majority of these legendary Pokemon, there are more than one of them. How is this possible? Ditto can make more of these Pokemon in the daycare, likely through some sort of cloning type process. But most, if not all of these genderless Pokemon can be found in the wild in areas where Ditto is not prevalent. Which means that somehow these genderless Pokemon are reproducing. But how? How can these genderless Pokemon reproduce? Well, I think I know how to answer that. With science! Since these Pokemon don't have biological sexes, sexual reproduction with one male and one female is out of the question. However, there are two main modes of reproduction in the real world that only require one organism: Parthenogenesis and Asexual Reproduction. Those are big words, I know, but I will explain. Parthenogenesis is where a female gives birth to offspring without ever being fertilized. It's a complicated process and there's a lot of different ways that it can happen, but a lot of the times it involves the female duplicating chromosomes inside her body instead of just receiving one from the male. This doesn't really seem like it would work for genderless Pokemon though, since the species that take part in parthenogenesis have genders, and genderless Pokemon do not. But maybe this is how all male Pokemon reproduce. Question for another day. But what about asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is where an offspring arises from a single organism. There are several different ways that this happens, such as budding or binary fission, but most species that partake in asexual reproduction tend to be single-celled. So, could genderless Pokemon be reproducing asexually? Well, maybe. There's an issue with it though. The offspring from an asexual reproduction are genetically identical to the parent, since they're only inheriting their genes from one parent. However, all the Pokemon in the wild are completely different. This isn't really great evidence against asexual reproduction though, since all of these different Pokemon could just have different parents that they're genetically identical to. Since we don't know who the parents of the wild Pokemon are, we can't fully analyze wild Pokemon. However, we can look at the daycare. Asexual reproduction conflicts with what we see in the daycare, since the offspring from a genderless Pokemon and a Ditto have different individual values, natures, and sometimes even abilities than the parent genderless Pokemon. However, I think this may not actually be an issue, because I think it's possible that these traits are not inherited ones. Think about it. If you have two Pokemon in the daycare, one male and one female in the same egg group, their offspring will only be guaranteed to inherit IVs in a nature if the parents are holding specific items. And there's no way to guarantee an ability being passed down unless the species only has one ability to begin with. So therefore, asexual reproduction could very well be possible in the wild, with the offspring being genetically identical to the parent with every trait that's inherited, and different with every trait that's determined randomly at birth. But what about the specific methods of this reproduction? Well, Ditto and a genderless Pokemon create an egg, but that doesn't necessarily have to happen in the wild. We also don't know if when they reproduce asexually they produce a Pokemon of the same stage or a level below. I personally predict that it's one of the same stage, since if they're genetically identical other than the non-inherited traits, they would be the same. So Baltoys make Baltoys and Clay Dolls make Clay Dolls. The specific methods of reproduction likely vary from Pokemon to Pokemon though, since all of these genderless Pokemon are so different that the mechanisms would just be me making random speculation. So let's just stick with the fact that they reproduce asexually. That is, assuming Pokemon reproduce at all. No one's ever seen a Pokemon egg be laid, so it could just materialize whenever. Who knows? So there we have it. Genderless Pokemon likely reproduce asexually, and the reason some traits differ is because those traits are not inherited ones. I think this is a pretty solid explanation, although it's weird to think about Lugia reproducing asexually. What did you think of this video? Do you agree with my answer? What are some other Pokemon questions you want me to talk about? Let me know in the comments below! And if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe for more fun Pokemon content of all kinds. Also, be sure to check out MandJTV.com for some awesome MandJTV t-shirts. And I'm still doing that Pikachu plushie giveaway with Gizmo Slip, so sign up for that in the description below. Also, go check out my second channel, JMikeyG, for some fun vlogs and challenges and other comedy videos. Alright, that's all I have for now, so until next time, Pokefans. Gotta catch them all!